So Housefires started because Nate was a worship pastor at one of our church campuses. I was a worship pastor at another one, and we have a lot of house churches in our network of churches, and we wanted to give them accessible, approachable, easy to sing worship songs.
Totally. Yeah.
But they were songs that we had sang over each other in our house churches when we'd gone through different seasons of grief or excitement or whatever. We would just kind of celebrate. We'd write songs together in these places. We did that writing retreat and wrote Rise and One Thing. And
oh, wow. That's cool.
Anyway, so we just like recorded it with no video first. And then people loved it, and we decided, oh, let's record it again and do video. And then a year after that album release, it was #1 a year later.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, like, so obviously you guys were writing these songs before you recorded them. Those had to have come out of pretty early. Oh. I mean, like, did the songs like come out of those moments, or was it like, let's go write for, like, was it, or probably a combo of both?
It's a combo, but I'd say what really sparked it initially was just these were coming out of live worship moments, off the cuff, singing off the page, just those Holy Spirit breathed moments at church and living rooms at our house church gatherings, and like something would stick, like a prayer that became a chorus, and then it was like, wait a minute, like I wasn't a proper writer, I hadn't even co-written that much before Housefires. So we kind of learned, I learned as I was going, the craft of it, the collaboration creatively. But yeah, I always like to say, like, each song has kind of come out of a prayer, like Kirk was saying. It's like something we were believing over our church, our families, something we were grieving, declaring. Totally. Yeah.
And I think the biggest God encounter for me in it all is the fact that the sweet thing that we loved in our community was so deeply resonant with people. And like you saying right now, like how moved you were by seeing it when it first came out, our stuff. That even
so
just like reminds me of like, man, it's such a sweet thing that we didn't realize was so rare. And you didn't realize, like, if you put a camera on the stuff that's happening in the corner, the sweet, pure stuff, it's happening actually everywhere.
Right.
And then all of a sudden people can go, yes. And that's essentially what happened.
When did
That's what viral is. It's like everyone around, as they see it, they're going, yes.
Right.
That's it.
Right.
And I think that's still happening. I mean, it is still happening.
For sure.
Like we never set out to be some band or some...
We had to figure out how to be a band after we became one.
We had no idea. I mean, there legit was no plan. It was just, let's write songs for our church, out of our church. And somehow it caught.
And I feel like when we started, it was like a really cool idea, and it felt like a God thing. It felt like it was like it's not many people you meet like later in life that you connect really highly with, and like you write well with. Like there's like a depth to the relationship that happens really fast, and that's kind of what happened with us. But I remember there being like, we were recording these first like 7 songs we did, and like early 2021, and we're like sound checking, like rehearsing the songs for the first time, and I remember the Lord being like, this is like, I remember it being like, this is not just a cool idea anymore. This is like the Lord's giving us something, and it felt heavier. It felt like there was like a responsibility to it, and it was like, wow, this is like, which obviously we're not like, nothing crazy has happened in our career or anything, but like it does feel like there is this like, you dream about things, you feel like you have the promises of God in your life that you like chasing for and believing for, and then they start to happen, and you're like, oh wait, there is still this responsibility to this promise, not just like I like made it. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, now the responsibility is like, how do we steward this? And like, so you guys have to keep going back to those moments. Like as time goes on, you're like, you like kind of force yourself to remember like the sweet moments in Europe, or like the sweet times like when it wasn't a thing. But you know what I mean? Like,
I think it's good to remember. Like, there's this phrase. This is so like pastor, like toss a phrase, but it's like, to go forward, you have to go back. You know what I mean? Like it's like paddling. It's like we have to remember like Genesis and where we came from. And along the way, and I feel like naturally, just even in prayer, I feel like I play back stuff all the time.
Yeah.
Or even like ask God to redeem my vision and how I see that, whether it was good or bad or both. But I think like all the time, I remember the sweetness and the ways that it started along the way. Honestly, that stirs up and cultivates gratitude.
Totally.
For like the journey, and I feel like it keeps us grounded and humble.
Yeah, right.
Even after all we've seen, all that God's done with us, through us, as we partner with Him, just like, man, we're still dependent upon Him, we're still dreaming of that. But to remember the journey along the way creates this gratitude and an anticipation, like God's still wanting to do this.
1,000%.
It's not over, it's still happening.
Totally.
So, man, I feel like all the time I'm just thinking back. The whole journey, 8-9 years.
A challenge for me in Housefires as a worship writer, maybe y'all will resonate with this, is when I have these authentic, pure, sit down at the piano or guitar moments where I just kind of need to worship, I'll have that pure moment for a few minutes, but as soon as the song sounds good, I'm like, oh, that's good, that should be on an
I
album.
just get people singing this.
Yeah, the moment, the intimacy that's just us gets kind of taken from me, you know? I think that's the sacrifice of praise for the worship artist, is that like your intimate moments are are not just for you anymore, and that's the privilege. They're not just for you. If God has given you the platform to steward, these moments aren't. They are for you, but they're for others as well. But you have to fight to keep those moments and not commodify them immediately. But I struggle with that even today. You know, a couple days ago we were in the bus just kind of writing this thing that I've been singing over myself, and it turned into this awesome song that we probably can't wait to record. But
Here we go, right?
yeah, it felt really good. But that's the first time in a long time that I felt both of those things. The intimacy with God, and also the beauty to give it away at the same time. It didn't feel like a moment was being stolen from me. It felt like the moment was actually being stewarded properly.
Just when I think about legacy, when I turned 30, I'm 34 now, but when I turned 30, I started to think more like, what do I want my life to say and leave? Because I started having kids, because you start thinking more generational, and just beyond yourself. I just need to make money and be okay and have enough. And it's like, no, it's way more than that. Like, generational legacy. And I think as far as Housefires, like, my hope and my prayer is that we would leave a legacy where everybody felt like they could worship, they could sing wherever they are, whatever they're doing. It's kind of always been our thing. Like, we want these holy, sacred moments with God, not just in a church or a spiritual, intentional time, but like the liturgy of your life. That you would engage and experience God wherever you are. And I think that's part of why, like, our music, we make it so simple, we make it so accessible and singable, because wherever you are,
People make
God
fun of
is
that.
there.
Like, oh, it's the same four chords. It's like,
Yeah.
it's the same four chords though. You can do it anywhere.
Yeah.
I think the future, the next thing, could be wrong, but I'm not wrong. I think there's something on including the whole family. So like, I would want to capture and see worship with kids and parents. Like multi-generational. We've done the multicultural thing, and that's like on the move, and that's doing well, and communal, everything's so inclusive of like adults. But where are the kids? You know, now, you know, like Nate's saying, like, now that we have kids, you know, I have 2 daughters, he has a daughter, and whenever I'm sound checking and she's like on my hip or something, she's getting a different kind of, there's a different, I don't know, it's just, she's included. She's not just like, oh, let's give you a coloring page and you sit down and color or watch an iPad while mommy does her job.
It's an intentionality.
It's like, no, this is something that we can do. I brought her on stage with me actually at one of the shows. She was side stage just like wanting to come out there so bad. So I was like, come here. Had her on my hip, and she was just like, like screaming, because she didn't know the words necessarily. She's only 2.5, but I was like, this is great. She's just screaming. She's just like giving her song. It's like in the microphone a little bit because I could hear it in my ears. And I was like, this is missing. The chaos. that kids bring, the next disruption is the family.
Big group hug? Oh, group hug? When was it?
All right. I was just gonna hug y'all.
Well, Nate started hugging both of us.
Sorry guys, I didn't